For supply and demand, I'm going to ask you to do a number of graphs, and so I thought it would be useful to lay out the expectations on what a good graph looks like. So let's consider the question, graph the market equilibrium, that is P star and Q star, for movie tickets, right? If you recall, P star and Q star are the intersection points of my supply and demand. They represent the actual price that movie tickets are bought and sold for, and the actual number of movie tickets that are purchased. I don't know what those numbers are, but I can use my common sense to try to give me some general guess about what some reasonable values could be. So the very first thing you want to do with every graph is go under graph settings to adjust those. It's good to put a title on every single graph, so let's go ahead and what's the market we're looking at? We're looking at movie tickets. Doesn't really matter where it goes. The x-axis, or the thing that we're measuring horizontally, for supply and demand we're always measuring quantity, right? For buyers, that's the quantity demanded, and for sellers, that Q is representing the quantity supplied. I would go ahead and leave the minimum maximum the way it is, and I would hop over to the y-axis. The y-axis, or the thing that we're measuring vertically, is the price. Here's where you want to use your intuition. For the minimum and the maximum, what a good recommendation, if we're trying to map out where supply and demand intersect at P star, then we want that to be somewhat in the middle of the graph, right? And so a reasonable price of movie tickets, somewhat reasonable price, is maybe $8 to $12 or something like that, depending on the location and the time of day and a couple of other things, but that seems reasonable. So let's use about twice that as our maximum, so that we are able to capture some of that area above price for the demand and the supply. So let's go ahead and put a maximum of 25. The tick spacing is going to be how many counts there are between my minimum and my maximum, right? So if I've got 25 counts, if I want to have a reasonable 5 ticks, then it sounds like I've got to do a tick space every 5 units. And let's go ahead and label every single one. Let's go ahead and look at this to see how it is. So it looks like my vertical axis looks pretty good. My horizontal axis, unfortunately with this program, is scaled so that it's also from 0 to 10. And if you look, vertically 0 to 10 is equal to horizontally 0 to 10. But that really squishes it together. So after you've set a reasonable price, then I'd encourage you to go back in your x-axis and adjust that accordingly. Let's just go ahead and make that, let's say 30. And with getting 5 ticks, it sounds like we should be doing a tick space every 6, and let's go ahead and label every 1. And so, yep, if you see, the horizontalness is now a little bit wider than the height on the vertical. And so, okay, we've got our price, which is the thing that we're measuring vertically. We've got our quantity, the thing that we're measuring horizontally. We're measuring the market for movie tickets. Two sides to it, right? We've got a demand curve, and I don't know exactly where the demand curve starts because I don't have an equation or a model, but let's think that willingness to pay might start all the way up there. And my demand curve is a downward sloping line going all the way down there. And that downward sloping line, I don't know what it is yet, right? But if I add some text to it, and all I need is a simple D, now it's clear that this downward sloping line is the D, the demand curve, halfway there, right? And so let's put on an upward sloping supply curve as well. Seems reasonable, except I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Let's go ahead and put a label on it so that I know exactly what that curve is. That's my supply curve, my upward sloping supply curve. Where supply and demand intersect, that intersection point, and I can use this little intersection tool on the right. Oh boy, and it's actually giving me estimates of what those values represent. But more than that, I want to make sure that it's absolutely clear that I am calling this little guy here my P star, my equilibrium price. That is the price in the market where the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied, and that corresponding quantity is what I would want to call my Q star. I would call that corresponding quantity my Q star. Get them out of the way a little bit so that we can see these things. And then it's pretty clear, right? This looks like a pretty good complete graph of answering the question to graph the equilibrium P star and Q star for movie tickets. I've got my demand curve, which is labeled. I've got my supply curve, which is labeled. I've got their intersection point, and it's clearly labeled on both sides as well. I also labeled my axes. That seems like a complete answer, and so now I'd want you to give me that answer so that I know that you know how to do this. So under File, if you go to Save As, it'll bring up some options on saving. It's probably a good idea to call the graph something related to yourself. Like I could call it Kutch. This is topic 3, part B. This is really important. Make sure you save as GIF. Go ahead and save it. And then when you go online in Moodle, there's going to be an option to upload that file. Make sure you are uploading those GIF files. Please let me know if you have any questions. We're hoping that this online tool is something that's useful and not too cumbersome. I think once you do it a couple of times, it's pretty straightforward and obvious. Just to make sure, again, the point of these graphs is not for you to understand it, but for you to convince me that you understand it, right? So take some time being careful, labeling things, and so that your information and what you know is clearly communicated to me.